You have been listening to this here, the Yamaha Reface CP, which is one of 4 new portable keyboards released earlier this year by Yamaha. The CP is named after the CP80 electric grand piano by Yamaha, but it's not restricted to that sound alone. We've also got the euphemistically named RD1 and RD2, which are basically Rhodes sounds, Mark 1 and Mark 2 Rhodes, a Wurlitzer sound, a Hohner clavinet sound, and also a toy piano emulation sound. So, what do we get with the Yamaha CP? Well, if we look at the box here, we can see that we get vintage electric piano sounds, as just mentioned, vintage effects, of which there is quite an extensive array, which we'll get onto, HQ mini keys, which according to the blurb are based on the same design as the Yamaha Motif XF. You get 37 of these keys, which is 3 octaves. We have internal speakers, so you can use this unit out and about if you so please. And battery operation, which as the picture suggests requires 6 AA batteries and will supposedly power the unit for about 5 hours. So inside the box we get the CP itself, which we've already seen. We get a universal power adapter. Mine's a bit of a freak here, as I got this unit from Holland and they provided an additional adapter for UK sockets, but they would usually ship it with the correct local socket adapter, and you can power this unit anywhere in the world. It accepts multiple voltages. We also get a MIDI breakout cable, which plugs into a single socket on the unit and provides you with a MIDI in and a MIDI out socket. No through, unfortunately, and I couldn't quite work out for a long time why they opted to put a breakout socket on here rather than just put the actual MIDI sockets on the back, as it seems like there's room for the sockets on the back of the chassis of the unit. But then I watched a Markus Fuller teardown video earlier today where he was looking inside the Yamaha Reface YC, which is the organ model from the range. And when he opened it up, it's quite obvious that while there's room on the outside of the case for the sockets, there wouldn't be any room on the inside. So it's not a bad solution for that problem, really, and it does work. And then, surprisingly enough, for this era of PDF manuals, we have a real instruction manual for this unit, which covers the whole range, the CS, the DX, the CP, and the YC. All the information you need for all of the units are in there. But that's not all. You get the manual in 5 different languages. As well as English, you get German, Russian, Spanish, and French. So there you go, 5 for the price of 1. Well done, Yamaha. So let's take a closer look at the Reface itself, and the build quality of the unit really does seem very nice indeed. It appears to be a plastic case mounted to a metal chassis on the inside, so that's all nice and solid. It doesn't twist or anything like that, like you might expect from something of this size. The controls as well on the strip here are all very nice and solid. The pots don't wobble too much, and these switches in particular are actually mounted to the outside of the case. That's not just a plastic moulding, they are really mounted there, so all very nice stuff. Now I know this is obviously a portable unit, but it might not come across in a video just how small this unit really is. It's just over 50 centimeters wide, which is about 21 inches. And it weighs just under 2 kilos, so it really is small enough and light enough to carry around in a backpack or something like that. If we compare it here to the Casio CZ101, it makes it look like quite a big keyboard in comparison, but of course the CZ101 itself is a small keyboard, so there you go, it really is a nice compact design. Right, now while I've still got the unit unplugged, I'll just show you the connections that we've got on the back here. We have the input for the power supply, the power switch, a socket for a sustain pedal, outputs in stereo on 1/4 inch monophonic jacks. We have a headphone output, also on a 1/4 inch jack. We have an 1/8 inch AUX input, which you'd probably use for an MP3 player, something like that. We have the aforementioned MIDI socket there for the breakout cable, and we also have a USB socket on the back there. Okay, so we've got the unit all plugged in here now. We'll just power it up. It does take a couple of seconds to load up, probably 3 or 4. There we go, that's it, working now. So let's start, first of all, I suppose, by looking at the keys themselves. And you can see there we've got velocity sensitive keys across the board here. And For these kind of electric piano sounds, of course, it's quite important to have the velocity there. And you can get the very gentle to kind of a barky sound out of them. The key bed itself is it feels quite nice. I mean, they're obviously mini keys here, but the feel to them is, I suppose, quite spongy, quite positive feel on the keyboard. It's not clicky like you get with some smaller keyboards like this, so that's quite nice. Let's just have a look at the controls we've got here. So you've got basically a volume here. Simple enough. We've got the octave range. And interestingly with this, I've got a sustain pedal plugged in here, so I can hold down notes and like that. And while holding notes down, you can change the range of the keyboard, and it will hold the notes that you sustained before. And you can even do that just by holding the note down itself. So, I mean, it's still not ideal with the 3 octaves, but that does help to enable you to do some little tricks that way, rather than if it changed as soon as you moved the slider there. On the type select switch here, it's just selects the instrument basically. So we've got RD1, the Rhodes, what we've been listening to here. RD2, which is like a Mark II Rhodes. Again, very nice sound, slightly more bell-like tone from that, like the real instrument. Then we have WR, which is, it's like a Wurlitzer. Again, that's very nice. Then we've got the clav. Then we've got the toy piano. Interestingly, with the toy piano, I mean, it's the sound that probably most people will use least often. But while in the middle of the range, it does sound just like a toy piano. If we go right down to the bottom end of the range, then you get a more bell-like characteristic from the sounds. And if we take it all the way up to the top, we get almost a percussive sound. You'd kind of lose the pitch of the note. So you might make use of that. Then finally we've got the CP here, which is a CP80 sound. And again, that's a great sound on there. So there's the sounds. Then we've got a drive control here, which if we put it back to the Rhodes, you can hear it better on that. And you can go from quite drastic, distorted sounds through to just a warm, kind of ever so gently overdriven sound. So there we go. Now I'll mention now the effects on here. So that's basically all the control over you have over the sound to start off with, and that's actually not dissimilar from a lot of these instruments in the first place. You would just have a volume control, and perhaps you could overdrive it, but The clavinet is one instrument where this interface can't really fully replicate the original, in such as the original had rocker switches for different pickup settings, whereas this one's only got the one. You just got the one sound on there. But of course, with a little bit of EQ, you could certainly kind of replicate the kind of sounds that the different rocker switch settings would give you. So now let's have a look at the effects on the unit. They're divided into 4 banks here: tremolo or wah, chorus or phaser, digital delay or analog delay, and then reverb all on its own. May as well mention the reverb first. We've just got a depth control here. That sounds like that. Then let's look at the delays. We've got digital delay. And we've got a depth control for that, so we can wind it right up, and I think it will just loop forever. Interesting on this that they've set the delay so that it loops rather than drives itself into distortion. And then you've got a time as well, so let's see how long a delay time we can get here. So I'm not sure exactly how long that was. It's probably about 2 seconds, must be getting on to 2 seconds, and it's very clean because it's a digital delay emulation. So let's go down to the analog setting now. And there we get a kind of more analog style tape delay kind of sound, in that the high frequencies are rolled off, and we've got a shorter delay time on that. So there you go, that's both of those. Now I'll mention now that all of these effects here, you've got the option to have one or the other, but these switches quite nicely have got a center indent as well, so we don't have to turn the depth down to 0 every time you want to turn the effect off. So here we've got the analog delay there, and we can just switch that off. That's quite a nice feature. They didn't have to do that. They could have had it as just a 2-throw and you turn the depth down to 0, so it's nice for them to have included that. Now let's look at the chorus and the phaser. So we'll go to the CP. That works quite nicely with the chorus. And again, here we go. So you can get quite subtle sounds to quite kind of space age sounds on that. The phaser, let's go with the Rhodes for that one. That's a kind of classic kind of Steely Dan thing. And then, yeah, again, you can dial the speed right up on that. That gets quite funky, and the depth as well. So there we go, that's the chorus and the phaser, and then we've got the tremolo in the auto wah. We'll set it to the wah first, and that's a sound that's obviously better associated with the kind of clavinet sound rather than the electric piano sound, so... And we've got a rate and a depth on that, so... Kind of get kind of like a twangy elastic band sound out of that. That's quite nice, quite effective. And then the tremolo. The tremolo's interesting in that it's kind of an adaptive effect. If we set it here to the Wurlitzer, you get the classic Wurlitzer tremolo. So there you go. But if we set it to the Rhodes, then we get the classic Rhodes stereo tremolo. You can drive it right up into headache-inducing full stereo tremolo. So yeah, that's basically all of the sounds on here. Now, the keyboard itself, you can see there, I mean, I'm not an expert pianist, but I certainly wasn't playing excellently there. And I mean, you can play on this keyboard, but it's really kind of a case of just plonking out tunes rather than being able to play something really nicely. So, I mean, with that Queen tune I was playing just there, I wouldn't have been able to play any more than that because I would have needed to move down the key range, and I wouldn't have had anywhere to go. So it's a bit of a funny one, the keyboard. So what I'm going to do is plug it into the Kawaii K1 here, which is a big full-size keyboard that I've got, and then we'll properly explore the sounds that we can get out of this unit. Okay, so now we're on the Mark 1 Rhodes, and straight away you'll be able to tell a difference in the sound. It's got a much mellower sound, more rounded tone, less bell-like. Really is a nice sound. Real kind of Lonnie Liston Smith territory. You've got it covered with the phaser on there. So that's nice. Let's try something else on this. Okay, so I've got the CP80 up now, and unfortunately I don't know any Keen songs, so I'm just going to have to play something else. Okay, so just to wrap up now, I'll mention a few technical details that I've not covered yet. First of these is that the keyboard has full polyphony across the whole key range, so you're never going to have any notes dropping out. And the second detail is a slightly more negative one from my standpoint, and that is to do with the MIDI implementation on the unit. Now, I don't want to dwell on this too much because I know most people now will probably just use the unit as a standalone instrument, never use the MIDI at all, or perhaps use USB MIDI with a computer. But if, like me, you want to use the breakout cable and implement MIDI in a setup like what I have with the DIN sockets, then you may face some issues because the instrument has no surface controls for adjusting the MIDI parameters in terms of the channel or the omni mode, and also the unit doesn't save these settings if you decide to change them via, I think you can do it by a mobile phone app or via MIDI CC commands or MIDI sysx or sysx, however you want to say it. So really every time you reset the unit you've got omni mode on and MIDI channel 1. So that is quite a big issue. Now I've been in contact with Yamaha technical support about this, and they've said that Yamaha EU has suggested to head office in Japan, presumably, that the ability to save these parameters be introduced in the next firmware update. Now, that was December that I was last in contact with them, and I've been checking the site regularly, and as of yet, there have been no changes to this. So, I don't know, for some people it won't be a problem. For me, it's a bit of a pain, but I'm just about being able to work around it, but it's definitely not ideal. It's a big flaw with the unit. So let's just look at the pros and the cons of this unit here. You've got great modelling of 5 distinct classic electric piano sounds. You've got a compact design, which is ideal for somebody like me who wants to save space in the studio, set up like I have. And you've also got that nice interface, real knobs, real hands-on controls, which makes editing the sounds quite easy and quite enjoyable. On the downside, related again to the size of the unit, you've got the mini keys. Now, you can play them, but particularly for the CP, the electric piano sounds, it's not ideal. And also, as I mentioned previously, the lack of the onboard controls for the MIDI is a big issue for me. So bear that in mind if you're looking at getting this unit. Just think about how you might want to use it in a setup. So, could I recommend this instrument? Well, it depends entirely on how you're intending to use it. If you want to use it like I'm going to use it as a desktop module, as long as you can get around the MIDI problems with the unit, then absolutely, yes, the sounds are great, the controls are really neat, and it works really well. However, if you were going to use it as a standalone unit and you didn't have a big keyboard, you're probably going to struggle to get the best sounds out of it. So just think about how you want to use it and think if it would really work for you, because there are a lot of VSTs out there now which can offer similar kind of sounds, and it may be the case that one of those would be better suited for your setup. So if you've got any questions about the unit, feel free to post a comment, and thanks for watching. I hope this has been of use. Adieu.